Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Wondrous Creatures from Bad Comet Games. Wondrous Creatures is a worker placement tableau building game in which players are going to be trying to gather and play as many cards as possible, or more specifically, the best combinations of cards as possible, all while trying to optimize their own score against the other players before the game ends. At its core, worker placement is going to be driving your resource getting as well as your card gathering during this game. You see, on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to take one of your meeples over here, and you're going to place them down the board. Although I should note before we begin this, it's worth noting that over here I do have the deluxe extra components over here, so certain things you're seeing here are things specifically regarding the deluxe upgrade token pack, like these metal tokens and these slightly thicker wooden tokens instead of the cardboard punchouts for certain areas of the board. I just don't want you watching this review and thinking that you're getting things that you're not. Most of this is the same. The metal tokens and the upgraded cardboard punchouts are the things that are different here. With that said, let's dive back into the game. What you're going to do on your turn is you're going to be primarily placing out one of these little guys over here to get resources and or cards. There's other things you can do as well. There's going to be pulling back your workers. There's going to be gathering various trophies or claiming trophies that you've earned on this little tableau area over here. But the main thing to start off with is place out a person and then go ahead and try to gather resources. Now to do that, you're going to be looking at the cards in your hand and seeing what the cards in your hand cost as far as the resources. So for example, let's say I wanted to gather this card, which I will note, by the way, is not the most efficient right now, but I don't want to spend too much time on AP over here. I'm going to place this out over here, and I'm going to place this down over here, and right now I can get 2 green and a blue resource because my guy is touching 2 green and a blue. So I can gather those, and that would be enough to let me play this card, which again could be one of my actions for the turn. So right there, that's going to be a good example of placing out a meeple and then gathering resources so that you can play cards. But how do you get cards? Well, you get cards by placing down your meeples, and instead of taking a resource, you could take a card from a matching area. So for example, with these 2 blue and green over here, I could take only 1 green, 1 blue, and then draw this card over here, which has the green biome over here, and take that to my hand instead. So instead of just taking resources, you can also take cards that have matching biomes to where you place, which is going to add more to your decision making as far as what it is you're trying to gather on your turn. Now that's not where the fun ends though, because there's also these little icons that are going to be on the bottom of various tiles on the board, and more of those will come out later as we place these out onto the board. Additionally, there are various eggs over here. So for example, I could have placed over here and taken this egg over here as well as those 2 purples. I'm just knocking things all over the place over here. I could have taken those 2 purples and this egg by placing on top of the egg, placing it over here. Alternatively, you can also use a net to gather eggs from adjacent locations and or to use the benefit beneath the tile over here. So for example, I could trade in one of my nets to take an extra purple, or for example, if I'm placing over here, I can take a green and a yellow and then trade in this net to take an egg from the water. So the nets are going to give you more consideration as to what it is you're trying to do on your turns over here. So again, to summarize all that, one of the core actions of the game, place a worker, take resources, you can take cards instead of resources, and you can discard a net to go ahead and activate a effect from a adjacent location and or gather an egg that is adjacent if you didn't already gather an egg that you just simply placed on top of. That is kind of action number 1. Past that though, you're going to be playing cards. That's going to be probably the second most common action you do in the game, where you take a look at the resources you have, and you'll be tracking them over here. So for example, as you gather resources, you'll be moving up on these tracks, but you're going to take a look at a card in your hand and decide which card it is you want to play. There are 5 different card types, of which I currently have 3 in my hand, but I can show you a bit more over here. The first card type is going to be endgame scoring. This card is going to be that biome, it's going to give you those animal tags, it's going to cost those 2 resources, so every card has a lot of information just right there, but then this little red bar over here tells me that this is end game scoring. I'm going to get 1 point for every mammal tag, which is these 2 over here, in my reserve. And yes, those count eggs as well. If I had gathered this egg over here, in addition to eggs giving you various bonuses as you slot them here, they'll also give you points as you go through it, and they'll also count towards various things. So for example, this card will score based on that mammal tag right there. So that's an end game scoring card. The next card over here, this is a pullback card. These cards activate when you take a recharge turn. A recharge turn is where you pull back the various meeples that you've placed out, and you're going to go ahead and activate your various recharge cards as well as discarding down to 5. You need to be mindful over here. You need to discard down to 5 cards in your hand when you take a recharge turn, so you do want to plan around that. You're also going to go ahead and move this timer track, which is one of the ways that will slowly cause endgame to trigger. You're going to move this along the board, which usually involves flipping one of these, populating more eggs on the board, getting a new net, and then at some points over here, sweeping cards from these rows over here. That double broom icon means you do a double sweep, sweeping the full entire marketplace, adding more cards into the game over there, more card variety into the game. So that's what you do on a recharge turn. But again, going back to the cards in my hand, you'll activate this card. When recharging, you can gain a fruit, and you get an additional fruit for every 3 trophies that you earned. These are trophies, and they are the main way, they're the only way that the game end is triggered when these trophies run out. Now, I mentioned this track over here. The reason this track ties into endgame is as this track advances, when it hits here, every future advancement destroys a trophy. So if players have not earned trophies themselves through the actions that they're taking, eventually time marches ever onward and trophies will disappear from the market. That's going to be card 2. Card 3 is going to be one of the most common card types. This is an instant benefit card. That little lightning bolt, you simply play the card, you do whatever is on the card, and the card has no other effect except for the various tags in play, and of course points, because all cards have points on the side. So those are going to be 3 of the 5 card types. After that, let's go ahead and do some market diving to find you the other 2 card types, because we have these cards, which are, well, we have them right over here. We have them both over here. These cards are going to be infinite use cards. So this card over here is each time you activate a recharge card in your reserve, gain a victory point. So it's a card that does something automatically based on something else happen. That's going to be these infinite use blue cards. And then lastly, you have these cards over here, which these cards, when you gather them, you're going to put a certain number of tokens on them equal to what's shown on the card, in this case 1, and at any point you can remove that token in order to do the effect on them. So they're sort of like the one-time use cards, but they are instead delayed one-time use cards, and sometimes they're delayed 2 times use cards, and also there's ways to recharge them with effects, which means you can get even more uses out of those cards. So once again, the 5 card types: endgame scoring, recharge turn cards that activate when you pull back, instant use cards, delayed instant use cards, and then always active cards are going to be the 5 card types. So again, the second action of the game is playing cards. So you have to play a card, pay the resources, put it into play, and then what you put into play will not just have the effect, but the tags can be useful for a lot of things, which is where we come to action number 3, claiming a trophy. You see, you can claim a trophy in this game by simply fulfilling the effects. If you have 8 or more unhatched eggs, look at me, I got 2 already, I can go ahead and claim a trophy by going ahead and putting one of my markers over here onto the trophy and taking one of these if I do have those 8 unhatched eggs. The other trophies we have over here, and I should note these cards are variable, so there's different cards you can have in each game. We have simply having 14 cards played into your board, 6 or more of the same habitat icon, that's going to be these tokens over here, these little icons at the top over there, and then down here is for collecting certain types of species. So for example, if we can claim the various aquatic species and the mammals, if we have a combination of 5 of those tags, we can claim this one, or 8 tags, we can claim that one. And so these ones are kind of first come, first serve. First come gets more points, and these ones are you have to achieve that thing, and then you can go ahead, you have to achieve different levels of that thing, so you could achieve 5 and get 6 points, or 8 and achieve 12 points, assuming those are unclaimed. And over here, the game sets up specifically so that no tags are duplicated. Of the 7 animal tags you have in the game, you'll always have 6 of these in the current marketplace, and that's going to be another action you can take over there. A few other things to cover, because there are a lot of other things to cover, but first of all, you have your captains. You can have asymmetric captains. You can see a whole bunch of them over here, and again, some of these are from some of the expansions. I should note, I believe 4 of them are from the expansion, the rest are from the base game, but these will give you a specific captain that becomes a magnetic rider on your little board over here, and you can go ahead and unlock that ability through a variety of ways. In the base game alone, you simply have to achieve a trophy. So as soon as you achieve a trophy, any trophy, you unlock your captain's ability, and your captain will give you an ability when you place out your captains. That's going to be this board over here, and again, you can mix and match the player boards and the captains to give you a wide variety of abilities in the game. The expansions, on the other hand, will introduce more ways to go ahead and unlock captains as well, more ways to unlock your captains as you play. Outside of that, a few more things to cover. First of all, there's going to be a point track with various bonuses as you pass through things. So as I move past this mark over here, we're going to take one of these tiles over here and place it out onto the board. So you can take one of these, you can place it onto the board, and boom, look at that. You suddenly have a new spot and therefore new terrains on the board that you have to navigate around in order to go ahead and get potentially more resources and have new abilities underneath it. So as players cross certain points over here and over here and over here, you'll be adding new spots to the board. Speaking of the board, one thing I didn't tell you about yet is in the game, you can place on these regular terrain tiles. You can also place on mountains or even across mountains and terrain, but in order to do that, you have to pay an extra resource, so there's a cost to doing that. And outside of that, you cannot place on water or off the board spots or on these actual resource spots as well. So that's going to be how the board works. That is basically how you're going to be playing through Wondrous Creatures. The general idea is you're trying to get these trophies because these trophies are worth points. As you get trophies, you're going to have these over here, by the way, which these can be utilized to go ahead and as you place these, you have to take an effect on one of these. So you have 6 different benefits of the trophies you can acquire. Trophies will be the trigger for endgame. Each trophy is also worth 3 points in addition to the points you have on the card for the specific thing you got. That's particularly relevant as you reach endgame because somebody can still achieve a trophy card without claiming a trophy if they've done the things necessary, but they lose out on those extra 3 points, not to mention you've already seen some cards that will possibly give you extra in-game benefits for having those trophies. You're ultimately trying to place out your meeples, trying to time the placement, the recharge, and the playing of your cards, trying to be mindful that you are trying to go for these trophies. An early game trophy can get you early access to your captain, versus going for those longer effects can go ahead and give you more points for doing so. Meanwhile, time is slowly ticking onwards, which means if players do not get trophies, they're slowly going to be disappearing from the market anyway, and you're trying to build out the best combination of the tableau, of how your cards will work together, of the various trophies you're going to acquire, trying to figure out as many points as you can possibly get by the time the game ends. There are some expansions over here. I will not talk about the expansions right now. I'll loosely talk about the expansions when I go into the review. And speaking of which, let's go ahead and talk with a review of what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like about Wondrous Creatures. There's a lot to like here. First of all, the great art and presentation. In general, the art, the presentation, all those things are off the bat pretty good. Deluxe tokens certainly do enhance the gameplay further. If you do like this game, I do recommend picking up the deluxe token packs. Licensed little metal trophies and deluxeified little bits instead of the cardboard shits are certainly a nice quality of life aspect. But past that, because that's just the surface veneer over here, the card play is why I'm here for Wondrous Creatures. The card play is everything. In fact, the worker placement, I'd argue that the worker placement puzzle I find is actually just not satisfying enough. It's present, it does drive the engine forward, but as far as my complaints about the game, which we'll get to later, I think the worker placement is okay. The main thing I like here is the cards. Everything else is designed to get me to the card play because there's giant tons of cards. Like you don't even see over here, I have like this entire stack. Let's see if I can grab them over here or grab at least most of them. I have, in addition to the market over here, I have this entire stack of more cards over here. There's a ton of cards, and one of the nice things about the game, by the way, is you actually do get to see most of the cards as you go through the game. Between the players buying the cards, between the players using effects that will sweep parts of the market, and between players as they advance on this board, doing double sweeps on the market as well, you're going to see a lot of the cards as you go through the game, which means you can not reliably see everything, especially if they come out with more expansions, you won't be able to guarantee you see anything, but you have a decent chance of most of the stuff you want showing up at one point or another. Whether or not you get it is a different conversation entirely. But the cards offer so much interplay between the way the cards work, the effects they'll give you, and how to try to get the cards that drive you towards the trophies you need because of the tags on them. This card over here wants 6 or more of the same habitat icon. Are you going for that, or are you working towards certain animal species because you can get 12 points for achieving the right combination of animal species? What is it you're trying to do? Which cards in your board are already driving you forward towards that? I showed you already that endgame card that rewards you for the mammals you're going to have. Well, then maybe I'm going to focus on this, play that card, that will give me 2 mammal tags off the bat, and then as I work my way towards more mammal tags, I'm both driving towards this point over here, but also towards the points of that card itself. Very often the things you'll play will drive your direction forward, and then trying to establish the balance between the greed that you're going to have, because you will have greed. You will see a lot of cards in the marketplace that you're going to want because they all feed perfectly into your engine, but you can't afford them all, and you can't even afford to get them for later because when you take a recharge turn, you have to discard down to 5 cards, which means you're constantly balancing between the resources you need to get to play the cards, the fact that you want a bunch of cards that are perfect for your engine. Every game you play, you're going to have those cards that are perfect for your engine that you just need, but you can't have it all. And so you're constantly trying to evaluate which combination of cards that are in your hand and that are in the market you want to actually try to prioritize getting out, because you want everything out right now and you can't get everything out right now. Everything's going to take time to do, and so you're working your way towards that, but the entire card engine is why I'm here. The card engine is why I like Wondrous Creatures. Every time I play, I find myself being pulled in different directions of which combinations of cards are going to help me the most, combined with the overall trophy engine and the worker placement that gives me a satisfying game experience. There's a nice little toss-up of the decision space around gathering trophies right away, so you can go ahead and lock something in and move on to the next thing, as well as unlocking your captain, versus trying to optimize and getting the most points out of every single trophy. You can get a bunch of smaller trophies and get a bunch of these out, which will give you extra points, plus don't forget that each trophy on its own is worth 3 points, so it's not really 6 versus 12, it's really 9 versus 15, which is a different mathematical equation as you go through it. Trying to look at your opponents and be mindful of what they're going for, and trying to either seek out different things or possibly cut and run earlier to get those points. That little trophy balance is another thing that will give you a lot to think about and consider as you play through the game. The asymmetric leaders, there's a whole stack of them. Again, a whole bunch of these over here, 4 from the expansion, but the rest of the base game, giving you different things to work towards as you go through things, which will further give you, again, that little bit of asymmetry that drives the game forward even further. And this is a good time to talk about the expansions, because the expansions add 2 new things. There's basically 3 little expansions. There's the deluxe resources, but then there's also going to be gargantuan beasts and the crew set over here. Now, the crew set is going to offer you new various mounts over here to match with specific crew set over here. They're the crew that you're placing out effectively, little beasts you're placing out. But you're going to take these cards which offer a one-time effect, either a start of game effect or a once a game effect that gives you something strong that you can do that really helps you in the game. So that's going to be what the crew set offers. The gargantuan beasts, I think, is even better, because the gargantuan beasts, not only does it add, again, 4 new captains and some cards to the deck, it also adds, well, gargantuan beasts, which are these creatures over here, which you can hatch a bunch of eggs to take. You're going to seed the market with these cards that you don't start the game with them. They're just in the market. And you're trying to figure out which ones are going to help your engine, and you have to hatch eggs to get them, and then you can do various things to continuously further hatch them until eventually you flip them over to their opposing side and get to benefit from their tags and their abilities, which can be incredibly powerful. We have the Yetital, which I think should have been the Yetible. The Yetible sounds better than the Yetital. I honestly like the Yetible. But these over here, both of those over here, the fantastic, the gargantuan beast as well as the crew, are going to give you that additional level of asymmetry in combination with your captain that further enhances a game that already gives you a ton of things to be mindful and combine and manage as you play for it. So just again to recap, ultimately, the main reason I'm here for Wondrous Creatures, the main thing I like, is the incredibly satisfying card play and the hard decisions you have to frequently make as far as trying to figure out your optimal pathway towards victory. As far as things I don't like in the game, first of all, there's a fairly static initial board. Now, the board will develop as you play, but the board kind of starts off fairly static. There's the optimal spots where you can get extra various resources. Going here will get you 3 green. Going here will get you 2 green and a blue. But there's not a ton of spots where you can actually get 3 resources, and going to a mountain space means you have to pay a resource for that. So a lot of it will come down to where are the eggs, where are the abilities. But the board ultimately ends up being kind of static, and while it does develop as players cross these point metrics, it develops far more slowly than I'd like. I'd say that by the time you actually have a fully developed board that feels meaningfully different from where it started, you're already headed towards the end game. And so I wish the board was either more different, had more things that changed it from the beginning. I just wish the board had more interestingness to what it is. Honestly, as much as I've enjoyed playing this game, the interestingness of the board kind of wore off after game 1, and I was already focused much more on the card engine than any meaningful decisions going on the board itself. It's not to say you don't have to choose where to go, but I would say that when I play the card part of this game, I feel I'm constantly torn between what is the best thing for me to do. And when I play the board part of this game, I am rarely torn between what is the best thing for me to do. It is usually not that interesting of a decision, and the fact that the board is the same every game and doesn't change meaningfully until you're towards the end of it means that that problem is present every single time I play. On a similar note, I wish the goals were more interesting and or different. I wish even the expansions added more goals. There's only a handful of goals over here for the main ones over here, but these ones are at least interesting. These ones, on the other hand, these are basically always going to be a combination of 6 tags. How you mix them up doesn't make the game better or more interesting or more different, and the fact that there's always one tag that is not in play just means every time you play the game, there's just one tag that's just worse than all the others. So I really wish they overhauled this goal system, adding more of the top tier goals and changing how different or nuanced or interesting these bottom goals were. Again, the fact that you have 6 out of 7 cards are always useful means the market will often clog with that one card that's remaining, although it does, to be fair, it does give somebody an opportunity to say, I'm going to go for those cards because no one else is competing on them for me. So there is that little minor silver lining, but for the most part, I like the goals. I do like them. I don't want them gone. I think they are great as far as what they do, but I think they could be significantly better as well. As far as what I can see others not liking, a few small things. First of all, the game can run long, especially at higher player counts. A 3-player game at your first time will run long. A 4-player game at not your first time will run longer than it should be, so the game can run a little bit longer. It might outstay its welcome just a drop. To be fair, you could make changes to that yourself by modifying how many trophies are in the marketplace, so it's something that's easily house rulable, but I honestly like the game, so I just deal with the fact that it runs a little long. Secondly, the fact that you have to discard cards after a pullback turn, after a recharge turn, means there's frequently a lot of AP as far as min-maxing how to not be left inefficient as you go. So very often a game that I think it sometimes could go a drop faster as far as making decisions because you're trying to not be left with dead resources that you have to discard. I find that often leads to a lot of the AP, the analysis paralysis, that can be present as you play. And then lastly, the marker cards are swept a lot, which for me, I like that because it means that I often see most of the deck. So if there's certain cards that you were kind of counting on, there's not pure luck of the draw. You will see most of the cards in the game. But it does mean that if you are somebody that didn't want the market card swept, if there's things that you want and you don't want to deal with the fact that very often things will disappear as often as they show up, that might be something you don't enjoy about the game. As far as final thoughts on Wondrous Creatures, I really like this game, and I like it primarily because of the card play. The card play to me is everything, to the point that to me, the main worker placement engine it just feels okay. And yet despite that, I still like this game an absolute ton, despite a key portion of the game feeling like it could be a lot better and a lot more interesting. Ultimately, the decisions I make as I play through this game, the fact that every single time I table this, I feel I go in a little bit of a different direction as far as what I try to do. The fact that the expansions add nicely, they don't add a lot of rules overhead. Like the expansions I would never play without them. I think even for a first-time new player, I probably would not play without the expansions because the rules overhead is so minimal, and the extra level of asymmetry they add to the puzzle just makes it even more fun, that they're, again, nice little things to add. So overall, this is a great experience with excellent card play, some things that I wish were better, but overall as a full experience, it's a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoy Wondrous Creatures and cannot recommend it enough. Well, I guess I could recommend it partially more if things were different, but I recommend it a lot. I think it's a great game. Speaking of recommendations, as far as other game recommendations, first of all, definitely check out Terraforming Mars. As I played this game, I couldn't help but get the feel of Terraforming Mars with the combination of tags, the card play, how it's very much about the fact that my eyes are always bigger than my stomach. I want to play a lot more things than I reasonably can. I got a lot of the vibes I get from Terraforming Mars from Wondrous Creatures as I played through it. And then lastly, check out Life of the Amazonia, another game from Bad Comet that also has a very similar theme, very different implementation. I personally enjoy Wondrous Creatures more, but I do like both of those games. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.